When I told my mother-in-law I was going back to my hometown to have my baby, she replied, "Go ahead. I don't want to see you." I felt relieved because I had been waiting for her to say that. I thought to myself, finally, I won't have to deal with her anymore. My name is Emily, and I'm almost 28 years old. My mom passed away when I was very young, so my grandmother took care of me while my dad ran his clothing business. My dad was strict, and I always did what he said. I never dated anyone because of his rules, but I had accepted that as my fate. After college, I briefly worked for my dad, but he said it was too hard to work together, so I had to quit. He didn't want me to work elsewhere either, but seeing my friends get jobs and start families made me want to work too. One night, I asked my dad if I could get a job. He simply said no without explaining why. I tried to reason with him, saying I needed to gain experience in society, but he shut me down. He insisted I stay at home. Frustrated, I threatened to leave home and find work elsewhere. My dad didn't like that and told me to stop talking back. Feeling upset, I stormed out and cried in my room for a long time. Eventually, I called my college friend Lisa and asked if I could stay at her place for a while. Lisa, who lived in a luxurious condo her parents gave her, agreed, sensing something was wrong. I quietly packed my suitcase and left home, hoping not to disturb my dad. I wrote a note explaining that I was staying with a friend and left it on my desk. Then, I took a taxi to Lisa's apartment. When I arrived, she welcomed me with my favorite coffee. I thanked her and poured out everything about the argument with my dad and why I left home. Lisa sympathized, saying I deserved freedom. It hit me hard that I had always followed my dad's orders without question, but now I longed for my own independence. Lisa agreed, saying it was normal to want to meet new people and have fun. She asked if my dad knew I was there, and I told her I left a note, but he didn't know any of my friends. Lisa suggested we go to bed since it was late, and she had prepared a separate room for me to sleep in. The next day, Lisa went to work, and when I checked my phone, I saw several missed calls from my dad. Feeling bad for worrying him, I sent him an email to reassure him that I was okay. Later in the evening, after Lisa finished work, she invited me to join her for a drink. Excited but inexperienced with socializing over drinks, I agreed to go out. When I got to the meeting place, I found Lisa waiting with two men. She introduced them, pointing to her boyfriend first, then to the single man, Max. With a warm smile, Max introduced himself, and our relationship began. Max worked at a small company in the clothing industry. At first, I wondered if Max's company was similar to my father's, but I quickly pushed the thought aside. Max's family situation was different from mine. He only had his mother around, but he didn't elaborate, and I didn't pry. One day, Max expressed his desire to meet my father, but I wasn't ready to go back home yet, despite exchanging emails with my dad. Instead, I suggested meeting Max's mom. He eagerly agreed, even suggesting we could visit her that very day. Wanting to bring a gift, I stopped by a bakery for a cake, knowing Max's mom appreciated such gestures. As it turned out, my mother-in-law not only appreciated gifts, but also became irritable if not presented with one. When we arrived at Max's house, his mother greeted us at the door, having received a message from him. She immediately questioned me about my life, expressing skepticism about my employment status and implying I lived a privileged life. I explained about my deceased mother and my father's job, but she dismissed my responses. Max, sensing the tension, urged us inside, asking if I had brought anything. Feeling rushed, I handed over the cake, apologizing for its simplicity. My mother-in-law snatched it from me, making a sarcastic remark before accepting it. In just a few minutes, I grew to dislike her, feeling sorry for anyone who had to deal with her as a mother-in-law. As soon as we stepped into the living room, my mother-in-law bombarded me with questions to which I responded with vague answers. However, she persisted, firing questions at me as if I were a suspect in an interrogation room. Feeling overwhelmed by the relentless questioning, I whispered to Max that I should probably leave soon. This seemed to infuriate my mother-in-law, her face flushing with anger. She accused me of hating her and giving insincere responses. Max tried to calm her down, but she lashed out, questioning his choice in bringing such a supposedly rude woman home. Annoyed, I defended myself, asking for specific feedback if there was something I could improve. This only seemed to aggravate her more, as she accused me of being cheeky and disliking her. I wanted to agree, but I just couldn't. I'm exhausted and longing to go home, I explained. My mother-in-law's response caught me off guard. How audacious of you. I wonder what kind of upbringing your parents gave you. They must have been lacking. Her words stung, and tears welled up in my eyes. Now you're crying for sympathy. If you want to leave so badly, go ahead. It might do you good. Oh, and by the way, I'll give this cake you brought to my dog Charlie, but he's quite picky, so he might not eat such a cheap cake. She pointed at the cake I had brought. Max intervened, telling his mother to stop. You really don't know how to judge people, he scolded her. Max's remarks seemed to deflate his mother's argumentative energy. All I want is the best for you, Max, she countered, her tone softer. Max stood his ground, asserting his adulthood and his ability to handle his own affairs. His words brought tears to his mother's eyes, and she left the room, visibly upset. Feeling hurt by the harsh words of Max's mother, I decided to leave. However, Max caught up with me and apologized sincerely. Emily, I'm sorry for my mom's behavior. She might be feeling threatened, thinking she's losing me. I'll talk to her about it, okay? Please don't let this incident discourage you from visiting again. His words reassured me, but I couldn't shake off the hurt caused by his mother's comments about my parents. Max, what your mother said about my parents really hurt me. I don't think I want to see her again. As the sadness washed over me, tears welled up, and I found solace in Max's comforting embrace. After a while, he suggested we go somewhere, and we ended up at the beach, sitting on a sandy bench, watching the waves for hours. 2 months later, I discovered I was pregnant. When I shared the news with Max, he proposed marriage. Let's make it official. We don't need a grand ceremony, but we can live together in my house. I don't earn much, so renting an apartment isn't feasible. I'll talk to my mom about being more considerate towards you, Emily. Despite my reservations about living with his mother, I agreed, realizing it was our only option. Okay, I'll do my best to get along with your mother. And so, I found myself living with my mother-in-law after getting married. I returned home to inform my father about the decision. His face lit up with joy when he spotted me. It's wonderful to see you looking so well. We've been in touch, but it feels like ages since our last meeting. My father greeted me warmly. I'm sorry, Dad. I have something important to discuss with you. I replied, sensing his anticipation shift to curiosity. I proceeded to share the news of meeting Max, my pregnancy, and our plan to marry. My father listened intently, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he offered a simple, "Well, congratulations. I can't wait to meet my grandchild," though his smile seemed strained. "Thank you, Dad. I'm sorry for causing you any pain," I apologized, tears streaming down my cheeks. To my surprise, my father's eyes glistened with tears too. Instead of anger, his tender response hurt me more deeply. Eventually, I moved into my mother-in-law's home. Lisa, who had been a pillar of support since I left home, expressed her excitement about meeting my baby and shared her own hopes for marriage. Despite the mixed emotions, we made plans to dine together. Originally scheduled for Sunday, my mother-in-law insisted on moving the date to Saturday, citing superstitions. The move went smoothly, with the movers diligently transferring my belongings while my mother-in-law observed silently. Despite repeated warnings from the movers about the danger, my mother-in-law refused to step back. Once the move was completed, she called me over and questioned if I had given the movers their due payment. Confused, I asked, "Huh?" Sensing my confusion, she assumed I was feigning ignorance and left to rectify what she thought was a mistake. When she returned, she handed an exorbitant sum to the movers' leaders, assuming I hadn't provided enough. Stunned by the amount, I questioned her decision. "You gave them that much?" I exclaimed. She brushed it off. claiming it was for the best and citing superstition about avoiding curses by being generous. Knowing it would only lead to another argument, I remained silent, unwilling to engage further. My mother-in-law wore a smug expression, convinced of her righteousness. Just then, Max arrived and noticed the tension. He intervened, asking his mother what had happened. With a dismissive reply, she walked away. Max reassured me, expressing his disapproval of his mother's behavior. Grateful for his support, I decided not to mention the incident to avoid further conflict with my mother-in-law, knowing it would only worsen our relationship. After settling in, my mother-in-law noticeably avoided speaking to me, leaving me in peaceful silence for weeks at a time. One day, Max brought home some work documents in an envelope marked with the name Star Textiles Incorporated, causing me to gasp. This was a familiar name from my time working at my father's company. They were one of our subcontractors. Curious, I asked Max about the envelope's origin. "Is this from your company?" I inquired innocently. "Yes. Why do you ask?" he responded. Sensing it was best not to mention the connection between his company and my father's, I simply replied, "I was just curious. I realize I don't know much about your company." Max explained, "We're just a small subcontractor. If our parent company were to drop us, we'd go bankrupt instantly and all the employees would lose their jobs." Max chuckled softly, a hint of nostalgia in his expression. Around a month later, I noticed a change in Max's routine. He started returning home from work later than usual and seemed visibly upset. Concerned, I asked him what was wrong. "You've been coming home late lately. Is everything okay?" "You seem different," I inquired. Max confessed, "The company is facing some challenges." "What kind of challenges?" I probed further. Max sighed. "The parent company unexpectedly slashed our orders by half. Our boss is desperately trying to convince them to maintain our business relationship. And we're also searching for new clients. But if things don't improve, we might go bankrupt." As I listened to Max's worries, I considered asking my dad for help. However, I knew my father's strict principles wouldn't allow him to assist a business partner based on personal feelings alone. It seemed like many of the company's partners were facing similar hardships. I disclosed to Max that my father's company was the parent company of his. Initially surprised, Max pleaded with me earnestly, his eyes gleaming with hope. "Emily, please implore your father not to cut ties with us," he urged. Regretfully, I explained, "Max, my father is firm when it comes to business. Personal matters wouldn't influence his decisions." Desperate, Max persisted. "Could you at least try?" Reluctantly, I agreed, knowing it likely wouldn't sway my father. Yet Max knelt before me, tears in his eyes, begging for help. "Please, I beg you," he pleaded. Frustrated, I implored him to stop, but I promised to speak to my father nonetheless. As Max lifted his head, tears of relief streamed down his face. That night, I called my father and relayed Max's plea. Surprisingly, my father agreed to help. "So, Max works for Star Textiles Incorporated? Then I must assist them," he stated. I was taken aback, expecting him to decline outright due to his strict business principles. However, he outlined two conditions. First, he would continue business with Star Textiles but wanted Max to join his company. Second, he requested that both Max and I move in with him. Puzzled, I questioned his motives for wanting us to live with him. Uncomfortably, my father admitted, "I just want my daughter close by." I accepted his conditions but sought clarification on why he had decided to reduce dealings with Star Textiles initially. He explained that a new company had offered an enticing proposal, prompting the shift in partnerships. Upon conducting some research, we discovered that the new company my father intended to partner with had a history of unfulfilled promises, prompting us to reconsider the deal. So, Star Textiles would have been fine even if I hadn't intervened? I asked, amused by the irony. "Maybe," my father chuckled, and I couldn't help but laugh along. After hanging up, I promptly informed Max of my father's conditions. He sighed with relief at the news that Star Textiles was no longer at risk, but expressed hesitance about joining my father's company. It's difficult for me to leave Star Textiles, Emily. I've built strong bonds there, and am unsure about starting anew, he admitted. Respecting his decision, I relayed his sentiments to my father, who acknowledged Max's dedication and allowed him to remain at Star Textiles. However, he remained firm about us moving in with him. Delighted by my father's decision, I cautioned Max not to disclose my father's involvement to his mother, knowing she would disapprove. He agreed, understanding the importance of keeping it a secret. Weeks later, as the time for our child's birth approached, I made the decision to return home. Despite having only my father and grandmother there, it felt preferable to staying with my mother-in-law. Waiting for the opportune moment when my mother-in-law was occupied with her afternoon tea, I approached her to break the news. Mother-in-law, regarding my childbirth, I've chosen to go back home. It's just my dad and my active grandmother there, I explained calmly. Her response was as expected, filled with disdain and resentment. By all means, go back. I don't want to see your face, she spat out. Unfazed by her reaction, I assured her, you won't have to see me anymore. Max will soon be moving in with my parents as well. Her confusion was palpable as she questioned my decision. Max is too busy with work to move, I reassured my mother-in-law, trying to ease any tension. Just then, Max entered and excitedly informed his mother, Mom, everything is going to be fine with the company now. Emily helped me out. Confused, she asked, What are you talking about? Max explained, Emily's dad is the owner of the parent company of the company I work for. Shocked, my mother-in-law's demeanor changed as she turned her attention to me. Emily, I had no idea you were connected to Max's company in that way. I've been terribly rude to you, she admitted, bowing deeply. It's all right now, I replied, trying to diffuse the tension. However, she surprised us all by requesting to live with my parents as well. Both Max and I declined, preferring not to dwell on the past hurtful interactions. I don't want to live with you, mother-in-law. Being here would only remind me of everything that's happened, I explained gently. Her tears flowing, she pleaded desperately, but we stood firm in our decision. Months later, we decided to visit my mother-in-law's house, only to find it empty and eerily quiet. Concerned, Max called out for his mother, receiving no response. As we searched the house, we found her emaciated and frail, lost in her own world. Despite our attempts to engage her, she remained silent, focusing only on the cake we had brought. As she devoured it hungrily, I couldn't help but think, well, mother-in-law, you brought this on yourself.
I'm Emily, and I'm here to share my roller coaster of a story. Let me start by introducing myself. I'm a 29-year-old woman, happily married to my husband, Jack. We tied the knot 2 years ago, believing that we had found our forever in each other, Oh, how I wish things had stayed that way. It was a beautiful spring day when Jack and I exchanged our vows. Surrounded by family and friends, we made promises to support and love each other through thick and thin. The world seemed full of possibilities, and our hearts were brimming with hope. We both had successful careers at that time. I worked as a marketing executive, while Jack was a talented graphic designer. Our salaries were decent, and we had managed to save up a considerable amount. With dreams of building a life together, we decided it was time to invest in a place we could call our own. One sunny afternoon, we stumbled upon an enchanting apartment in the heart of the city. Its tall windows flooded the rooms with natural light, and the exposed brick walls added a touch of rustic charm. It was love at first sight. We knew we had found our dream home. With a twinkle in our eyes, Jack and I spent countless hours envisioning how we would decorate and personalize every corner of our newfound sanctuary. We scoured furniture stores, debating colors and styles, eager to make our mark on this beautiful space. I can already see our cozy reading nook by the window, I said, smiling at Jack as we discussed our plans, and that little corner in the kitchen where we can brew our morning coffee together. He chuckled and squeezed my hand. It's going to be perfect, We signed the papers and moved into our new apartment shortly after. As we unpacked boxes and hung pictures on the walls, our excitement grew. It was a labor of love, turning a house into a home. Together, we built a life filled with love, laughter, and dreams for the future. Little did we know, our journey was about to take an unexpected turn, challenging our promises and testing the strength of our bond. After our blissful wedding, Jack and I embarked on a thrilling journey to find the perfect place to call our own. We were both successful in our careers at that time, which gave us the financial stability to pursue our dreams. One sunny afternoon, we stumbled upon an enchanting apartment in the heart of the city. Its tall windows flooded the rooms with natural light, casting a warm and inviting glow. The exposed brick walls added a touch of rustic charm, making the space feel cozy yet modern. It was love at first sight. As we stepped into the apartment, a sense of possibility filled the air. We stood in awe, envisioning our future within those walls. The open floor plan and spacious rooms offered endless opportunities for creative expression and personal touches. "I can already see our cozy reading nook by the window," I said, my eyes sparkling with excitement. "We can curl up there with a good book and a cup of tea." Jack smiled, his gaze wandering around the room. "And what about a beautiful study corner for me? I can set up my graphic design station right over there." We chuckled, lost in our shared vision of transforming this blank canvas into our dream home. We scoured furniture stores, comparing colors and styles, eager to find pieces that would reflect our personalities and create a warm and inviting atmosphere. "I think this vibrant blue couch would be perfect for the living room," Jack suggested, pointing to a display. I nodded, picturing how it would complement the exposed brick wall. "Yes, and we can find a cozy rug to tie the room together." Together, we carefully selected furniture, art, and decor, pouring our hearts into every decision. Each piece became a symbol of our love and commitment to creating a space that would reflect our shared dreams and aspirations. As the weeks passed, we transformed the empty apartment into a haven of comfort and style. We hung paintings on the walls, carefully arranged plants in the corners, and filled the rooms with soft lighting. It was a labor of love, and with each passing day, our bond grew stronger. "I can't believe this is our home," I said one evening, snuggling up next to Jack on the couch. "It feels like a dream come true." He kissed my forehead, his voice filled with warmth. "And build a beautiful life we did, cherishing every moment spent in our dream home." Little did we know, the challenges that awaited us would test our love and resilience in ways we never imagined. After settling into our dream home, life seemed perfect. Jack and I were both successful in our careers, enjoying the stability that came with it. However, fate had a different plan in store for us. It started with a whisper that grew louder with each passing day. Jack found himself caught in the clutches of an unemployment struggle. The industry he worked in was experiencing a downturn, and finding a suitable job became an uphill battle. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months as Jack tirelessly searched for employment. His determination and talent were undeniable, but the opportunities seemed elusive. The weight of disappointment bore down on him, and I could see the toll it took on his spirit. Meanwhile, I shouldered the financial burden, ensuring that our dream home remained intact. Every bill, every expense fell on my shoulders alone. The weight of the responsibility increased with each passing day, but I remained determined to support us both. One evening, as we sat at the kitchen table, the frustration seeped into our conversation. "I don't understand why no one is giving me a chance," Jack muttered, frustration evident in his voice. "I've sent countless applications, attended interviews, but nothing seems to work." I reached across the table, placing my hand on his. "I know it's hard, Jack, but we'll get through this together. You're talented and passionate. Someone will see that soon enough." He sighed, his eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and guilt. "I'm sorry, Emily. I never wanted you to bear this burden alone." I smiled softly, offering reassurance. "We promised to support each other, remember? In good times and bad. This is just one of those challenging moments, but we'll find our way." Days turned into weeks, and still, Jack's job search remained fruitless. The strain on our finances grew more palpable with each passing day, but we refused to let it break us. We held on to hope, hoping for a breakthrough that would bring stability back into our lives. In the midst of the uncertainty, our love became our anchor. We found solace in each other's arms, leaning on one another for support. Even in the face of adversity, our bond remained unshakable. As the months stretched on, a glimmer of hope began to emerge on the horizon. Jack received a call for an interview, an opportunity to showcase his skills once again. The excitement in his eyes was infectious, reigniting a spark of optimism within us both. I have a good feeling about this one," Jack said, his voice filled with renewed determination. "I'm going to give it my all." I squeezed his hand, a smile spreading across my face. "I believe in you, Jack. You've got this." And so we held on to hope, waiting for the tides to turn. Little did we know that our journey was about to take another unexpected twist, challenging our love and resilience in ways we never could have anticipated. Our lives had taken an unexpected turn with Jack's prolonged unemployment. As the sole breadwinner, I carried the weight of our financial responsibilities, hoping for a breakthrough that would bring stability back into our lives. But sometimes, life has a way of throwing curveballs when we least expect it. One evening, as I returned home from work, I found Jack sitting on the couch, his face pale and vacant. The smell of alcohol hung heavy in the air, a chilling presence that sent shivers down my spine. My heart sank as concern washed over me. I approached him cautiously, trying to decipher what had led him to drown his sorrows in alcohol. I took a deep breath and asked, "Jack, what happened? Why are you drunk?" He turned to me, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and despair. "What does it matter? You wouldn't understand. You're always too busy taking care of everything while I'm left feeling useless." His words pierced through me like a knife to the heart. The pain of his accusation cut deep, and I struggled to find the right words to respond. But I knew that beneath his anger lay a sea of frustration and self-doubt. Tears welled up in my eyes as I mustered the strength to speak. "Jack, I've always believed in you. I've never thought of you as useless. This journey we're on is challenging, but it doesn't define who you are." He scoffed, his voice tinged with bitterness. "It's easy for you to say that. You're the one holding everything together while I'm just a failure. I don't need you here. You should leave." The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging heavily between us. My heart ached, torn between the love I still held for him and the pain caused by his anger. But I knew that in that moment, I had to prioritize my own well-being. I took a deep breath, my voice steady but laced with sadness. "Jack, I can't continue living like this. I can't bear the emotional toll of constantly being blamed for your struggles. I deserve better, and so do you. I think it's best if I take some time away from this toxic environment." His eyes widened, the realization of what he had done slowly sinking in. "No, Emily, I didn't mean—" I interrupted him, my voice firm but resolute. "It's not about what you meant or didn't mean. It's about the way your words and actions have affected our relationship. I need space to think about what's best for both of us." With a heavy heart, I packed my belongings, feeling a mix of sadness and determination. I needed to find my own strength to regain control over my life. As I walked out the door, I knew that this would be a turning point in our story. Little did Jack know, I had a plan brewing in my mind, a plan that would allow me to reclaim my independence and, perhaps, teach him a lesson about the consequences of his actions. After Jack's drunken outburst, I made the painful decision to take some time away from our toxic environment. I needed space to heal and to reflect on what was best for both of us. It wasn't an easy choice, as my love for him still lingered, but I knew I couldn't continue to bear the weight of his anger and blame. Leaving our dream home behind, I sought solace with a close friend, finding comfort in her support and understanding. As the days turned into weeks, I allowed myself to grieve the loss of the life we had built together. It was a time of introspection and soul-searching, a period of healing and rediscovery. During this time, a newfound strength began to emerge within me. I realized that I deserved better than a relationship tainted by anger and resentment. I deserved happiness and a future where I could thrive both emotionally and financially. With a renewed sense of purpose, I made the difficult decision to file for divorce. It was a painful choice, as it meant letting go of the dreams we had shared and acknowledging that our forever had come to an end. But I knew it was the right step for my own well-being and growth. The process of divorce was emotionally draining and filled with legal complexities. I had to confront the reality of dividing our shared assets, including our beloved dream home. As I prepared for the negotiations, a fire burned within me, a determination to reclaim my independence and forge a new path. One day, as I sat in a lawyer's office discussing the division of property, the weight of the decision settled heavily upon me. The attorney outlined the options, and I took a deep breath, bracing myself for the difficult conversation ahead. "I understand that the apartment holds significant sentimental value for both of you," the lawyer said, her tone compassionate. "But legally, we need to determine how it will be divided." I nodded, my voice steady but filled with sadness. "I know. I don't want to erase our memories, but I need to move forward. I would like to buy out Jack's share of the property." The lawyer reviewed the financial aspects, explaining the process and implications. The road ahead seemed daunting, but I was determined to regain control over my life and my future. After numerous negotiations and legal proceedings, the paperwork was finalized, and I became the sole owner of our once shared dream home. It was a bittersweet victory, as I couldn't help but feel the absence of the love that had once filled those walls. With the apartment now in my name, I felt a sense of empowerment, a reminder that I could rebuild my life on my terms. But there was still one final piece to the puzzle, a way to bring closure to the pain and hurt I had endured. In the division of assets, I made a deliberate choice. I decided to keep the one thing that held great value to Jack, his cherished car. It was a symbolic decision, a way for me to assert my independence and, perhaps, make him realize the consequences of his actions. As I sat behind the wheel of his car for the last time, I couldn't help but feel a mix of sadness and satisfaction. It was the end of an era, a chapter of my life that had come to a close. But it was also the beginning of a new journey, a journey where I would find my own strength and rediscover the joy that had been overshadowed by pain. After enduring the pain of Jack's anger and the subsequent decision to file for divorce, I found myself standing at a crossroads where I had the opportunity to reclaim my independence and seek the justice I felt I deserved. It was time to embark on a path of calculated revenge. With the apartment now solely in my name, I knew that Jack, who remained unemployed, wouldn't be able to keep up with the financial obligations. I saw an opportunity to turn the tables, to seize control of the situation, and, ultimately, to gain my revenge. I enlisted the help of a real estate agent, ensuring that the process of selling the apartment would be swift and seamless. It was a strategic move, one that would leave Jack without a place to call his own and force him to face the consequences of his actions. As the for sale sign was planted in front of the apartment building, I couldn't help but feel a mix of satisfaction and unease. Revenge, though tempting, wasn't a path I had ever imagined myself taking, but the hurt and betrayal I had experienced pushed me to take matters into my own hands. One afternoon, as I sat in a cafe sipping my coffee, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Jack. a rare attempt at communication since our separation. He wanted to meet and talk. Curiosity piqued. I agreed to the meeting, preparing myself for the conversation ahead. We met in a park where the breeze carried an air of tension and unspoken emotions. "Emily, I'm sorry," Jack began, his voice tinged with regret. "I've had time to reflect on my actions, and I realize now the pain I caused you." I listened, my heart torn between the love I once held for him and the anger that still smoldered beneath the surface. But I remained resolute, determined not to let his words sway my decision. "I appreciate your apology, Jack," I replied, my voice steady. "But apologies aren't enough to erase the hurt and damage that has been done." He nodded, his eyes filled with a mix of remorse and longing. "I understand that. But please know that I still love you, Emily. I made a terrible mistake and I want to make things right." I took a deep breath, summoning the strength to share my decision. "Jack, it's too late for us. The damage is irreparable. I filed for divorce and the apartment is being sold." His eyes widened, realization dawning upon him. "You're selling our home. But what about me?" A small smile played at the corners of my lips as I revealed my calculated revenge. "You see, Jack, since you're currently unemployed, you won't be able to keep up with the financial responsibilities of the apartment. By selling it, I can reclaim my independence and secure my future." Shock registered on his face, mixed with a hint of desperation. I paused, meeting his gaze with a firm resolve. "That's something you'll have to figure out on your own. This is the consequence of your actions, Jack. You made me feel small and insignificant, and now you'll have to face the reality of your choices." As I walked away from that meeting, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Revenge wasn't the solution I had initially sought, but it became a means to assert my own worth and protect myself from further pain. Days turned into weeks, and the sale of the apartment was finalized. I used the proceeds to secure a new place, a fresh start where I could rebuild my life and find happiness once again. The path of revenge had led me to a newfound strength, an inner fire that fueled my determination to live life on my own terms. With the calculated revenge executed and the apartment sold, I had reclaimed my independence and severed the ties that bound me to a painful past. It was a bittersweet victory, as I couldn't help but mourn the dreams that had once flourished within those walls. But I was determined to turn the page and write a new chapter, one filled with self-discovery and joy. I settled into my new home, a space that radiated warmth and reflected my newfound sense of empowerment. The walls adorned with artwork, the rooms filled with pieces of my personality, and the air tinged with the aroma of hope. It was a sanctuary where I could heal and rediscover myself. As I embraced this new chapter, I also pursued my own personal growth and career aspirations. I invested in self-improvement, attending workshops and classes that nourished my mind and soul. I took on new challenges, seizing opportunities that would propel me forward professionally. With each achievement, I felt a sense of pride and a reaffirmation of my own worth. One day, as I was engrossed in a project at work, my phone buzzed. It was a notification of an email, a message that would mark the final step in closing the chapter of my past. It was the official divorce decree, a legal document that would formally end the marriage that had once held promise. As I read through the document, emotions swirled within me. Relief, sadness, and a newfound sense of freedom. I realized that I had triumphed over adversity, that I had chosen my own path, and found the strength to navigate through the darkest of times. To celebrate this moment of triumph and transformation, I decided to host a small gathering, a gathering of friends who had stood by me through the storm. They were my pillars of support, my cheerleaders in moments of doubt, and my reminders that I was not alone. As the evening unfolded, laughter filled the air, mingling with the clinking of glasses and the warmth of camaraderie. I looked around the room, a smile playing at my lips, and raised my glass for a toast. To triumph and transformation, I proclaimed, my voice tinged with gratitude. To the strength we find within ourselves and the unwavering belief that we can overcome any obstacle, here's to embracing the journey and living our lives authentically. The room erupted in cheers and applause, a chorus of voices joining mine in celebration of resilience and growth. In that moment, I knew that I had not only survived, but I had thrived. From that day forward, I continued to embrace life's adventures with a newfound zest. I nurtured my passions, sought new experiences, and surrounded myself with those who uplifted and inspired me. Triumph and transformation became the guiding principles of my life, reminding me that from the ashes of pain and heartbreak, we can rise stronger and more determined than ever before.
My name is Sarah, and I want to share my story with you. It all started when I met the love of my life, Michael. We were introduced by mutual friends at a cozy cafe on a chilly winter evening. From the moment our eyes met, I felt an instant connection, as if our souls had recognized each other. As we spent more time together, our love grew deeper and stronger. We shared dreams, laughter, and countless memories. It was undeniable that we were meant to be together. And so, after a whirlwind romance, we decided to embark on the beautiful journey of marriage. Our wedding day was a blissful celebration of love, filled with laughter, tears of joy, and promises for a lifetime. Surrounded by our families and closest friends, we exchanged heartfelt vows, pledging our love and devotion to one another. After the wedding, Michael and I moved into his family home, a charming house nestled in a quiet neighborhood. I was warmly welcomed by his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, and his sister, Olivia. They embraced me as one of their own, showering me with affection and making me feel right at home. Sarah, welcome to our family. We are thrilled to have you here, Mr. Anderson said with a warm smile, his eyes twinkling with genuine happiness. Thank you so much, Mr. Anderson. I'm truly grateful for your warm welcome, I replied, feeling overwhelmed with gratitude. Olivia, a vibrant and spirited young woman, approached me and hugged me tightly. Sarah, I'm so glad my brother found someone as amazing as you. We're going to have so much fun together. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and I couldn't help but smile. Thank you, Olivia. I'm excited to be a part of this family and create wonderful memories with all of you. In those early days, life felt like a fairy tale. We laughed, shared meals, and created beautiful memories together. I felt immensely grateful for the love and acceptance I had found within the walls of our new home. Little did I know that this idyllic beginning would be tested by unforeseen circumstances, unveiling the true colors of those around me. But that is a story for another chapter, a chapter that would change the course of my life forever. After our wedding, Michael and I moved into his family home, a spacious Victorian house that emanated a sense of warmth and history. It was a place filled with cherished memories and a place where new memories were waiting to be made. As I stepped through the front door, I was greeted by the comforting aroma of home-cooked meals and the sound of laughter echoing through the hallways. It was a bustling household, alive with the energy of a close-knit family. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, Michael's parents, greeted us with open arms. Mrs. Anderson, a kind-hearted woman with a gentle smile, enveloped me in a warm embrace. Sarah, my dear, welcome to our home. We are so happy to have you here as part of our family. Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. I'm truly grateful for your warm welcome, I replied, feeling touched by her genuine kindness. Mr. Anderson, a wise and gentle man with a twinkle in his eyes, shook my hand warmly. Sarah, it's a pleasure to have you here. Michael has found a remarkable woman to share his life with. I blushed at his compliment and replied, Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I feel truly blessed to be a part of this family. Olivia, Michael's younger sister, burst into the room with a contagious energy. Sarah, welcome to the family. We've been waiting for you. Get ready for lots of adventures and late-night talks. Her enthusiasm brought a smile to my face. Thank you, Olivia. I'm excited to get to know you better and create wonderful memories together. In the days that followed, I quickly settled into my new role as a member of the Anderson family. We shared meals, shared stories, and shared laughter. I marveled at the warmth and love that filled every corner of the house. It was a home where I felt accepted and cherished. Sarah, would you like to join us for a family game night? Mrs. Anderson asked one evening, her eyes twinkling with excitement. Of course! I'd love to, I replied eagerly, excited to spend quality time with my new family. As we gathered around the table, laughter filled the air. The game night turned into a joyous competition, with playful banter and friendly teasing. It was during these moments that I felt a deep sense of belonging, as if I had found my place in this beautiful tapestry of love and togetherness. Little did I know that the harmony we shared would soon be disrupted, and the true colors of some family members would come to light. But that is a story for another chapter, a chapter that would test the strength of our bonds and shape the course of my life. The days passed by in a blissful haze, filled with love and laughter. Our home felt like a sanctuary, a place where joy thrived. But then tragedy struck, shattering our world and leaving us reeling in disbelief. It was an ordinary day, just like any other. Michael had left for work with a kiss and a promise to return home soon. Little did I know that those would be the last words he spoke to me. I received a phone call that afternoon, the news hitting me like a tidal wave. Michael had been involved in a fatal accident, and he was gone. My heart shattered into a million pieces, and I felt like my world had come crashing down. Tears streamed down my face as I stumbled through the front door of our home. The once vibrant and joyous place now seemed filled with sorrow and emptiness. Mrs. Anderson rushed to my side, her eyes brimming with tears. "Oh, Sarah, my dear, I'm so sorry. We're all here for you," she whispered, enveloping me in a tight embrace. The pain was unbearable, and grief consumed every fiber of my being. But amidst the darkness, the Anderson family rallied around me, offering support and solace in their own unique ways. Mr. Anderson, though visibly shaken by the loss of his son, remained a pillar of strength. He held my hand and said, his voice filled with compassion, "Sarah, we will get through this together. Lean on us, lean on me." His words brought a flicker of hope amidst the despair. I clung to his support, finding solace in his unwavering presence. Olivia, my sister-in-law, sat beside me, her eyes swollen from tears. She took my hand in hers and whispered, her voice filled with sadness, "Sarah, I can't begin to fathom your pain, but please know that I'm here for you. Lean on me whenever you need to." Her sincerity touched my heart, and I knew that even in the midst of our shared grief, we would find strength in each other. Days turned into weeks, and the Anderson family held each other tightly, weathering the storm of loss together. They never let me face the pain alone, providing a shoulder to cry on and a listening ear whenever I needed it. As I navigated the tumultuous journey of grief, I realized the depth of love within this family. It was a love that transcended blood ties, a love that encompassed compassion, understanding, and unwavering support. Together, we faced the tragedy that had befallen us, finding solace in the bonds that had been forged. But little did I know that the tragedy would become a turning point, unraveling the harmony we once shared and leading me down a path filled with heartache and adversity. That is a story for another chapter, a chapter that would test my resilience and reveal the true nature of those around me. In the aftermath of Michael's tragic passing, our once harmonious home began to unravel. The weight of grief seemed to have changed the dynamics within the walls that once held so much love and warmth. I found myself caught in a web of turmoil as my mother-in-law and sister-in-law began treating me with contempt and disdain. The first signs of their animosity were subtle, a dismissive remark here, a cold glance there. But as time went on, their hostility became more pronounced. They no longer saw me as a grieving widow in need of support, but as an inconvenience, a reminder of their own loss. I remember one evening, as I was setting the table for dinner, Mrs. Anderson walked into the room with a sneer on her face. "Sarah, you missed a spot. Can't you do anything right?" she snarled, her words dripping with venom. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I swallowed my pride and replied, my voice quivering, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Anderson. I'll fix it right away." Olivia, who had once been my confidant and friend, joined in the humiliation. "You're such a burden, Sarah. You can't even handle the simplest of tasks. I don't know why Dad keeps defending you." Her words pierced my heart like a dagger. I had believed that our shared loss would bring us closer, but instead it seemed to have driven a wedge between us. Days turned into weeks, and their mistreatment only worsened. They would assign me menial chores and berate me if I couldn't fulfill their demands to their satisfaction. I became their servant, an object of their scorn and ridicule. But amidst the darkness, there was one glimmer of light, the unwavering kindness of Mr. Anderson. Despite his own declining health, he witnessed the cruelty I endured and offered me solace whenever he could. One afternoon, I found myself exhausted, tears streaming down my face as I scrubbed the floors. Mr. Anderson, weakened by his illness, shuffled into the room. His eyes, filled with pain and empathy, met mine. "Sarah, my dear, please rest." "Let me help you," he said, his voice filled with concern. I looked up, surprise and gratitude etched on my face. "Mr. Anderson, you should be resting. Please don't worry about me." He sighed, a mixture of sadness and determination in his eyes. "Sarah, I can't stand by and watch them treat you this way. You deserve so much better. Let me do what I can to ease your burden." His words touched the depths of my soul. Here was a man, weakened by illness, but still willing to stand up for me against his own family. In that moment, I realized the strength of his character and the bond that had formed between us. Little did I know that Mr. Anderson's act of kindness would set into motion a chain of events that would alter the course of our lives. The battle lines were drawn, and the stage was set for a confrontation that would challenge the very fabric of our family. But that is a story for another chapter, a chapter that would test our resolve and reveal the true nature of those who had mistreated me. As the days grew darker, a new burden descended upon our already troubled household. The once harmonious home became entangled in a web of debts, and I found myself at the center of their tangled schemes. It started with innocent requests for money, small amounts borrowed with promises of timely repayment. But soon, those requests escalated, and it became clear that Mrs. Anderson and Olivia had fallen into a cycle of financial irresponsibility. One evening, Mrs. Anderson approached me with a sheepish expression on her face. "Sarah, we've run into some financial troubles. We need your help to pay off our debts. After all, you're part of this family now." I was taken aback by her audacity, but I mustered the courage to respond firmly. "Mrs. Anderson, I'm sorry for your difficulties, but I am not responsible for your debts. I have my own financial obligations to fulfill." Olivia, always quick to join in her mother's manipulative tactics, chimed in. "Sarah, don't be so heartless. We're family and family helps each other out. You wouldn't want us to suffer, would you?" Their words were laced with guilt, an attempt to manipulate me into shouldering their burdens. But deep down, I knew that their financial woes were a result of their own reckless actions. Days turned into weeks, and the pressure mounted. They resorted to emotional manipulation, hurling insults and belittling me at every opportunity. They made me feel like an outsider in my own home, a burden to be exploited. One day, as I sat at the kitchen table, tears streaming down my face, Mr. Anderson shuffled into the room. His frail frame sagged with exhaustion, but his eyes burned with determination. "Enough is enough," he said, his voice trembling but resolute. "Sarah, I see the pain you endure, and I won't let it continue. We cannot keep living like this, drowning in debts that aren't yours to bear." I looked up at him, a mix of hope and fear swirling within me. "Mr. Anderson, what can we do? How can we break free from this cycle?" A spark of determination glimmered in his eyes as he replied, "We'll find a way, Sarah. I have some savings put aside. We can use that to secure a fresh start, away from the clutches of their debts." His words filled me with a renewed sense of hope. Perhaps there was a way out of this suffocating situation, a way to reclaim our lives and rebuild what had been torn apart. And so, with a heavy heart, Mr. Anderson made the decision to sell our family home. The once beloved house, filled with cherished memories, would now become a means of escape from the toxic environment that had consumed us. The news of the impending sale sent shockwaves through the household. Mrs. Anderson and Olivia, who had relied on the comforts of the home without a care for its future, suddenly found themselves faced with the consequences of their actions. Begging for forgiveness, Mrs. Anderson pleaded with Mr. Anderson. "Please don't do this. We can change. We'll repay the debts. We promise." But Mr. Anderson stood his ground, his voice firm yet tinged with sadness. "It's too late for promises, too late for regrets. Sarah has suffered enough, and it's time for us to face the consequences of our actions. The house will be sold." And so, the decision was made. The house that had once been a sanctuary turned into a symbol of liberation. With the proceeds from the sale, Mr. Anderson and I rented a modest apartment, starting anew with the money he had diligently saved over the years. In the modest apartment that became our new sanctuary, a ray of hope illuminated our lives. We embraced the opportunity for a fresh start, leaving behind the toxic environment that had plagued us for so long. It was a chance to rebuild, to reclaim our happiness, and forge a path towards a brighter future. As we settled into our new surroundings, Mr. Anderson's health deteriorated further. His illness had taken a toll on his body, but his spirit remained unwavering. I took on the role of caregiver, tending to his needs with love and compassion. One day, as I sat by his bedside, he mustered a weak smile and said, "Sarah, my dear, you've been my ray of hope in the darkest of times. You've shown me the true meaning of resilience and love." "Thank you." Tears welled up in my eyes, and I held his frail hand tightly. "Mr. Anderson, you've been my rock, my source of strength. I'm honored to have been by your side." Together, we navigated the challenges that life threw our way. The burden of debts was gone, but we faced new struggles. Financial constraints, the weight of grief, and the absence of the family we had once called our own. But amidst the hardships, a network of support emerged from unexpected places. Friends from the community extended a helping hand, offering assistance and comfort. Their acts of kindness reaffirmed our faith in humanity and provided us with the support we desperately needed. One afternoon, as I walked through the local park, lost in my thoughts, I bumped into a familiar face. Emily, a kind-hearted woman, I had met at a community gathering. She smiled warmly and approached me. "Sarah, it's so good to see you. How have you been?" she asked, genuine concern etched on her face. I shared with her the challenges we were facing, and she listened attentively, her compassion evident. "I understand it must be tough, but remember that you're not alone. There are people who care about you and want to help." Her words resonated deeply within me. It was a reminder that even in the midst of adversity, there were rays of hope that could guide us forward. With Emily's support, we discovered resources that could aid us in our financial struggles. She connected us with local organizations that provided assistance and guidance, helping us navigate through the intricacies of rebuilding our lives. As we slowly regained our footing, a newfound sense of strength emerged within me. I realized that despite the trials we had endured, we had not been defeated. We were survivors, and together, we would rise above the challenges that life had thrown our way. In the midst of our journey, Mr. Anderson's health took a turn for the worse. The weight of his illness became too heavy to bear, and he passed away peacefully, surrounded by love and gratitude. In his final moments, he looked at me with a serene smile. "Sarah, my dear, thank you for being my light in the darkest of times. Promise me that you'll continue to shine brightly and embrace the happiness that awaits you." Tears streamed down my face as I clasped his hand. my voice choked with emotion. I promise, Mr. Anderson, I will honor your legacy and live a life filled with love and joy. And so, with a heavy heart and the memory of Mr. Anderson's unwavering support, I embarked on a new chapter, carrying his spirit with me as a beacon of hope. I knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but I was determined to face it with resilience, gratitude, and an unwavering belief in the power of love. As I ventured into the final chapter of our story, a newfound strength fueled my determination to seek justice and reclaim the life that had been unjustly taken from us. The time had come to confront the individuals who had treated me with disdain and to ensure that their actions would not go unpunished. Armed with the evidence of their mistreatment and the unwavering support of friends and community members, I sought legal counsel. The path to justice would not be easy, but I was determined to bring their actions to light and hold them accountable for the pain they had inflicted. In the courtroom, surrounded by the weight of truth and the support of my legal team, I listened intently as the evidence unfolded, revealing the depths of their mistreatment and manipulation. The courtroom was filled with gasps of disbelief as witnesses testified to the emotional abuse I had endured at the hands of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, in-law and sister-in-law. One by one, the truth unraveled, painting a vivid picture of the torment and humiliation I had faced within the confines of my own home. Their deceit, greed, and disregard for human decency were laid bare for all to see. As the trial reached its climax, Mrs. Anderson and Olivia, who had once reveled in their power over me, now sat in the defendant's seat, faces etched with a mix of anger and desperation. In a moment of vulnerability, Mrs. Anderson's voice quivered as she addressed the court. I didn't mean for things to turn out this way. We were grieving and I acted out of anger. Please, forgive me. Olivia, too, pleaded for mercy. I was misguided, influenced by my mother's actions. I didn't realize the extent of the harm we caused. I'm truly sorry. But their pleas fell on deaf ears. Justice would not be swayed by their remorseful words alone. The judge, impassive yet fair, delivered a verdict that would serve as a reminder that no one is above the law. Mrs. Anderson, Olivia Anderson, you are found guilty of emotional abuse and manipulation, the judge declared sternly. Your actions have caused significant harm to the plaintiff, and it is my duty to ensure that justice is served. You shall face the consequences of your deeds. As the gavel struck, the weight of the verdict reverberated through the courtroom. It was a moment of triumph, not only for me, but for all those who had suffered at the hands of cruelty and injustice. Outside the courtroom, amidst the flurry of reporters and supporters, I felt a sense of closure. The truth had been exposed, and the legal system had upheld the principles of fairness and accountability. It was a victory not just for me, but for all who had stood by my side during the darkest of times. In the aftermath, I received an outpouring of support from friends, family, and even strangers who had been touched by our story. Their kind words and gestures reaffirmed my faith in the goodness of humanity and provided solace for the wounds that had yet to fully heal. With the legal battle behind me, I focused on rebuilding my life, guided by the principles of compassion and resilience that had carried me through the storm. I found solace in pursuing my passions, building new relationships, and cherishing the memories of Mr. Anderson, whose love and kindness would forever be etched in my heart. The triumph of justice brought a sense of closure and the opportunity for a fresh start. It was a chapter that marked not only the end of a painful journey, but also the beginning of a new, empowered chapter in my life. As I walked away from the courthouse, my head held high, I knew that I had emerged stronger than ever before. The shadows of the past no longer defined me. I was a survivor, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, and a living testament to the